everyone, and welcome to today's episode of M&A Empowerment. And today, our guest is Noah Simons, who is the president and CEO of Upstate Capital and also a friend. We've been connected now for probably over 10 years, at least at this point, but gotten closer in the last few years since my board membership at Upstate Capital. So welcome, Noah. And if you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself and Upstate Capital.
Yeah, thank you, Kelsey. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure. I've been the leader of Upstate Capital for the last 8 years. It's a membership-based association primarily for private equity and venture capital investors. But obviously, there's a lot of overlap with mergers and acquisitions activity because investors are often involved either as buyers or sellers. And so we find good synergies with the M&A community for the organization.
Gotcha. So tell us a little bit more about your role and Upstate Capital's role in supporting the M&A ecosystem as a whole.
Sure. uh, Probably 4 years ago, when I was working on some bifurcation of really understanding venture capital as distinct from private equity, we added private equity and M&A in our marketing and branding and in terms of how we define Upstate Capital and our different audiences. So we planted this stake in the ground of being the place for M&A professionals to come and find other professionals, primarily to drive deal flow. So our primary function for investors and M&A professionals alike is to help cultivate convenings and opportunities for people to refer deals to one another, to find deal flow that they can invest in or participate in.
Awesome. And I know, not to give a little plug in here, but we are working on planning our private equity summit coming up in this September. So there will be details about that to see both on the Upstate Capital website as well as, LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. So something that you could reach out to both Noah or myself on if you're interested. So I guess kind of getting into a little bit more about how the organization supports women in M&A.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up the private equity summit. I think that's a good example of a place where we create spaces for women who are in this field to make connections. I know you're planning to host either a lunch or a roundtable, some opportunity for women to come together just to meet each other and exchange deals, ideally, because we're about deal flow, and obviously many women want to support each other because there are relatively so few of them. And so creating spaces for women within the segment of M&A within the organization is something that we actively work on, and you are actively supporting. I would say for myself personally, recruiting you to the board was one of the ways in which I actively support women in M&A work. And to that point, putting women in positions of power and authority and thought leadership through our events and through our marketing and communications elevates the visibility of women in the profession. And that is something that I think about at every single event and in almost every single photo and image and everything that we select for our marketing and communications, our website, our social media. So to me, the representation is really important. It's an important part of my job.
Gotcha. And I definitely feel like even since my time on the board here, that in terms of just our participants in some of the events and stuff, I've definitely seen an increase in the number of women that are interested in attending our events. So that's definitely, great to see.
Yeah,
Uh,
I agree. And this doesn't apply so much to the M&A side of things, but at the recent, we run our statewide intercollegiate entrepreneurship competition, as you know, because you've participated as a mentor and judge for up and coming entrepreneurs. And we host one of our judges for the finals is the woman who is the chairperson for the National Association of Women Business Owners. And so just in all these different places, we're able to bring in connections and different perspectives that I think help to elevate the whole entrepreneurial business community.
yeah, absolutely. So, lastly, what advice would you give to other women who are looking to get into the field of M&A or are currently here? What kind of advice would you give them?
That's a great question. And I thought a lot about it when I was preparing for this. I think the most important thing that I want women to think about and to remember is that confidence is a decision. And I think that applies no matter what you're doing and where you are. I personally have experienced the personality mindset of wanting to have all the answers and wanting to be right and wanting to be totally prepared for everything before I start something or before I pursue something with focus and intention. And I have found that that actually holds me back personally.
Hmm.
And what I work on for myself and what I would encourage women to work on in general is to mimic many of their male counterparts who are incredibly confident, whether that has a strong basis or not. And so I would just encourage people to really understand that confidence is a decision. And you can make that decision every minute of every day. And there are ways that you can train confidence into your mind, your behavior, the way you present yourself. And I absolutely encourage women to focus on making that decision every day.
Absolutely. That's good advice. That's a unique piece of advice that I don't think we've seen yet in the series. So I very much agree and very much
Oh, good.
appreciate. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are definitely
Yeah.
days that I get out of bed and honestly, I'll say, I have no interest in networking, and it's not because I don't enjoy it. I don't, I do enjoy talking to people. I love that part of my job, but sometimes it does take that extra effort just to be confident in what you know and what you're doing and how you portray yourself. But you're totally right. It's definitely a decision and something that's made a difference in out there in the world, at least for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we could all relate to those days of just wanting to keep our heads under the covers for whatever reason,
Right.
and we can make a decision to show up and make ourselves big and make ourselves loud and make ourselves clear, and I encourage more women to take up that space.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to say, even, with my friends and their young daughters and stuff. It's don't be afraid to take up space.
Hmm.
So that's excellent advice. But again, thank you so much for joining us. Again, everyone, this is Noah Simons. She's the president and CEO of Upstate Capital. And thank you so much for joining us.